Hello, I'm Michael Hollinger with WiSys, and today I'd like to share with you our philosophy of real-time ERP for Macola. Real-time ERP is based on three concepts, starting with recording all business transactions at the first touch point in the organization, better business decisions through business intelligence, using adaptable tools to automate business processes. So let's start with talking about first touch point in the organization. This concept is the idea that anytime you're physically moving inventory, whether it's coming in, you're moving it around your warehouse, or whether it's going out on a shipment, you're always scanning or at least identifying that inventory move at that point real time in the system, in the inventory system. This is important. It makes your data relevant and it makes your inventory accurate up to the second. So we have a couple solutions to help you do this. First, starting with mobile barcode scanning. So using Windows CE mobile devices with integrated barcode scanners. We have a product called Pocket ES that resides on the handhelds. Using process grids. Process grids are a nice process that we put within Agility, and you can use these, and I'll show you what this looks like in the demo here. But it's essentially a grid that in the first column you'll see has checkboxes, and you can identify these and identify what data you want to bring in, and then also have a button that calls a business transaction. Importing spreadsheets. This is a nice addition to the process grids. This allows you to bring in any kind of spreadsheet, and you can map the columns of the spreadsheet to properties of a business object within the developer's SDK. So that business object could be a PO receipt, or creating a purchase order, or creating a sales order, or shipping, or anything in manufacturing, transfers, moving things around your inventory. It's a really nice way to bring data in very rapidly. These are all based on Agility, and so also anything you build on Agility you can also host inside of Outlook as an Outlook add-in. So if you can imagine an email comes in, and we can then send that email address of the sender to an Agility component, and that could be maybe accounts receivable or any open invoices. Using the email we can find the customer number and then bring all this information about that customer and allow you to execute on that information regarding the customer. Then on the manufacturing side, with shop floor and POP, we can provide material issue and return. And then on shop floor, in POP we have work center reporting, and for shop floor we also have labor collection on the work center reporting product. And then carton pallet packaging. So this isn't just on shipping, but also receiving and transfers and moving the inventory around your warehouse. You could receive inventory onto a pallet, transfer that pallet around your warehouse, and then just load that pallet right onto a shipment. They could also be producing or reporting production through manufacturing directly onto a pallet, and then again moving it around and then taking that pallet and loading it right into a shipment out the door. But the pallet packaging and carton packaging also can be part of our pick-pack process. So you could at shipment time build up these packages and then ship out and integrate with UPS, FedEx, as well as EDI ASNs with the exact EDI solution. This is all built on the Agility framework, and there's also the Developer's SDK where the Agility framework can also call. The Developer's SDK first is at the raw low level is really a library of business objects, or DLLs, that do specific business transactions in Macola. So as I mentioned before, it could be a PO receipt or transfer, manufacturing, shipping out inventory or sales orders. At the low level, you can call those within Visual Studio or any COM-based app development program. But the Agility framework provides some nice tools that you can call the developer's SDK without being a developer. And I'll show you that here later on the demo. So once we've got the first touch point in the organization working for you, your data becomes relevant. Once that happens, you can now make better business decisions. And so I'll show you a little bit about what business intelligence execution looks like. So it's not about just dashboards and pivot grids, which we do offer that, but there's also the idea of looking at data and then being able to execute on that data. And I'm going to show you what a reorder advice report can look like and how we can actually execute on that and create purchase orders just by simply clicking a button. So that's what about executing on the business data that you're looking at. And again, this is all built on our Agility framework, which is a highly adaptable framework. So we have two tools, Agility Design Studio and the Agility Form Studio. Design Studio is used primarily for configuring the applications that you might see on a desktop. So the process grids, pivot grids, and some of the dashboarding tools. Those are all going to be configured using our Agility Design Studio. The Agility Form Studio is used to build forms and modify any existing forms that you would see on the mobile handheld device. So let me just get right into a demo. I'm going to start my demo with Agility Explorer. So in Agility Explorer, I've got a couple of things we're going to look at here. So I'm going to start with the IM reorder advice. So this is a nice little grid that I'm going to show you here. It starts with item number and location filter. So today we're going to be selling coffee, Starbucks coffee. So we're going to look at our items Komodo and Sumatra. So if we bring the data in, we got the Starbucks Komodo Dragon coffee and the Starbucks Sumatra coffee. Now quantity recommended is on here, and this is looking at our reorder level of 50. And we have nothing available because there's nothing on hand, nothing allocated, we don't have anything on order, so it's recommending to us 50. We could always change this too, so you'll see it's a bold column that indicates that this is an editable column. And you can make any column editable, that's your choice, using the Adaptable framework, and I'll show you how that works here later on. But let's change the demand. Let's change what's recommended by doing an OE file import. So the OE file import is a process grid, and we identified an import routine. Again, using our Adaptable framework, we defined what the Excel sheet is going to look like, and we mapped it. So I can browse for that Excel sheet, or if I just go over to my Outlook, I have an import sales Excel sheet that came in from Amazon. So I'm going to bring this down into Agility, and I'm going to drop it right here in the drop zone. Click OK. So we have 7 rows, and so there's our 7 rows here, 105, 106, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is for customers 901 through 904. So this has been ordered by customer number because it's going to, when we process this and create the sales orders, it's going to go through and recognize that every time the customer number changes, it's going to create a new order header and add the order lines to it. I'm going to select all of them. I may choose to just do a couple of them. So if there's some I don't want to do right now, again, also just like the IM reorder advice, I can make some of these columns editable. So if I want to change maybe a ship date or the quantities, depending on what your business processes needs are, we can do all that. I'm going to click Create Orders. And so it's going to go through, and for each customer, as a customer number changes, it's going to create a different order header and a unique order number for each one of those customers. Alright, so now if we go back over to our IM reorder advice, we can refresh this, and now we see our quantity recommended went up. And let's look at reason why. We've got now allocated 90 and 60 more because we've actually created some purchase orders for these items. Now what we can do is, and I have not created the purchase orders yet, we've actually just created some sales orders for it. So what I can do is go ahead and check this checkbox and click PO Create. And so just like the sales orders, it's going to create purchase orders now to fulfill this demand. It's also going to set the status to P, and it's going to print our purchase order to the screen here. So our PO number is 722837. And if we close this and refresh, our quantity recommended went to 0. And now we can see we have on order 140 and 110. Okay, now as a pick manager, I may want to go to WMS Pick Management, and we can go look at all of our request dates out there and see what we got coming down the pipeline. And now we can see these new sales orders came in, 115 through 118, and we've created an alert. So an alert is something in Agility again, on the framework that we can just identify per grid and say, in this case, if quantity backorder is greater than 0, make that column red. Okay, so I got some pretty bright red column, bright red cells right here. So I'm going to check these. Before I can fill the back orders, though, I need to go and receive my purchase orders. So for that, I will go over to Pocket ES on the handheld and go to peer receiving. So in peer receiving, I can put in my order number. Now it's the blue field at the top. Every time you see a blue field, that's the focus field. I can type, scan, or I can click this little lookup button here to look up a purchase order number. I know my PO. I'm just going to type it in. I could also scan it. And the item as well, I will go just type it in. I can also type or scan the UPC code, manufacturer's item number, or vendor item number, or I can define a bunch of different extra fields that might contain some kind of cross-reference to the item number. So go ahead and hit enter. And remaining is 140. So I'll hit 140. And the other item was the Sumatra. And here we have quantity remaining of 110. Go ahead and save those. Okay. So now that we've received in full these two items, I can go back over here to Agility. And now I still have these quantity back orders, but now I can actually fill these back orders. So this is a process grid, so I'm just going to select the ones that I want, and I'll fill back order. Okay, so there we have now 0 back ordered, and I'm going to choose just order 115 and print a pick ticket. I'm just going to print the pick ticket to the screen. So I could just choose to go ahead and click the printer and print it to my printer. But here we have order 115. It's barcoded. We actually provide barcode fonts if you when you implement WiSys, so you can bring these onto any of your Crystal reports. And everything we print is Crystal, or we also could do nice label. So this is just a Crystal report that you can modify. So go ahead and close down the pick ticket, and 115 popped off the list. And now I'm going to go open PickPack. So PickPack okay, so now we got PickPack open, and I'm going to do new shipment, and I'm going to do order 115. And so if our first item is going to be Sumatra for 15. Okay, so there's carton 1 with Sumatra for 15, and here it says F3 is new carton, same order. So we'll do F3, and we can see our order is still 115, but our carton went to 2. And Komodo is our second item, and we'll do 30 of the Komodo. And the ship via code on this order is been mapped to UPS. So we have a UPS option here. So if I choose UPS, this progress bar here, when it goes by, it's going to confirm ship the order. So set the order to a status 7 and relieved our inventory. And so the first carton is going to be a weight of 5, and the second will be a weight of 10. And I can also see F5 says get weight. If I have a scale attached, I can simply hit F5 and it'll bring the weight right off the scale. But I'm going to go ahead and hit ship. And this is going to integrate directly to UPS and print my UPS labels to my label printer. Also, it's going to take the tracking numbers and integrate them right into Exact EDI onto an ASN to be sent to the trading partner. So now, if I go back to Agility, I can go to OE, Order Billing, and I have order 115 now, status 7. So I simply check that checkbox as another process grid and choose Billing. So now we're going to bill the order in Macola. Now, do you wish to invoice? This is an option we added to our process grid. Do you want to invoice? We'll take it to a status 9 and print the invoice to screen. Okay, so here's our order invoice, invoice number 171, and there's our 2 items on the invoice. Okay, so we just did a whole flow of showing the demand change. We created some purchase orders, filled our back order, shipped it out, billed it, invoiced it, all in a lean environment. So to show a bit more of the adaptable tool set, what I want to do is I want to go show Form Studio. Okay, so I'm going to log into my company 111, and I'm going to open up my project for this form. And so if I pull up the handheld and we go to peer receiving, so here's our peer receiving screen, and if I click on Form Studio on this peer receiving screen, this is where we designed that form. So this form was actually developed using the same framework that a customer or a reseller would use to design this, similar forms for the handheld. What I want to show you is I could add a new field to this form, a text lookup field, and let's just make something up to show you the value here. So let's give this maybe a caption of some QC data. Maybe there's some kind of quality control information we want to capture at receiving time. And I'm going to go in here to the action on the button, and it's going to be a PO receipt. So this is the business transaction that it's doing, and you'll see we've got some data that we're mapping to the properties of the PO receipt business object. But let's take comment 1 and let's just do something real simple. We're going to map the QC data to comment 1. Okay? And so we'll go ahead and save this. And just to show you a little bit about Form Studio, you can go ahead and play this out. So if you simulate the form, we could test the form right here inside of our Form Studio. Before we actually deploy it out on the handheld, we could test it here on the desktop. But I want to go ahead and go right to the handheld and go ahead and do it. So if I go ahead and close this and reload it so we can get the new form layout, and again that was 722,837. Oops. And let's just do Komodo and quantity of 10. Now remaining is 0 because we already did a full receipt. So it should ask me if I want to over receive. So I'm going to choose yes. And let's just say QC data. Just something that we could put some data in here. Go ahead and save it. And we'll close, and let's go back over to Agility Explorer. So I'm going to go to the PO Master Order List. So on the PO Master Order List, do 722,837, will contains, and then search for that order. So here's our order 722,837. And if we go drill down on it, and we can click on the Komodo and click on the inventory transactions for it. And so there was our first purchase order receipt here was for 140, our second the 10 we just did. And what we can do is I'll right click and go to column chooser, and I'll bring in the comment field. Okay, so you can see there's no data on the first one, but the second one we've actually got some QC data in there. And if I can go in here and choose column text, and maybe we want to call this QC info on the column header. And now if I go to layouts and save my layout, every time I go back in here now, I'll just close this. When I relaunch it, now I've just made some meaningful data out of this view. So man, I got some QC data now that I can always capture, and I can see what I'm gathering on this view every time I do a PO receipt. Alright, so one last thing I want to show on our adaptable framework then. I want to open up Design Studio. So Design Studio is where we can go in and really start building these, but I want to show you how we built the IM Reorder Advice Report, because this is it's pretty important to show because it's a very powerful process grid, and we didn't write code to do it. We actually went right in here to Design Studio and build it from the framework. So I'm going to go into my project IM Views, and I'm going to go to my IM Reorder Advice. So this is how we build it. Right inside of here, we got the name, the description, we can choose an icon for it, and I'm going to go to the SQL. So loading SQL data. This is our visual SQL builder, and you can see it's pretty similar to maybe even Access and even I think SQL Enterprise Manager has something similar where you can drag and drop your tables onto it. Pardon me. So item master, inventory location. Here's all the tables that are in the Macola database. They don't have to be Macola tables either. They could be some other table that exists in the Macola database. You can drag them right in here to the SQL Builder. And then the filter is we define that. So there's item, number, and location. We define that as a range. It could be a list, drop down, a single value, or a checkbox. Give it a caption, and then we defined the search. So the search is a predefined search that we deploy that you guys can use as well as a user. So what that search is, if I go back over to Agility Explorer, to the IAM reorder advice, and if I go to my filter, here's the item number and location. The search is this right here. I can define and allow the user to go search for an item number. Okay, so we go back to Design Studio, and so the buttons now for the IAM reorder advice, we had PO orders and a PO create. So the PO create, just simply add a button, give it a caption of PO create, and go to transaction definition, and we can look at the detail. So the detail is every time we loop through every row on the process grid, when it finds a row that's been checked with the checkbox, it's going to call this transaction right here on the detail. So if vendor change, it's going to look at if the vendor number changes, then it's going to create a new order header, a PO header for that vendor, and then put the line underneath, each line underneath that PO header. So the header needs a vendor number to create the order. Order status, we went ahead and set that as default to a P. The vendor number came from the view. The vendor number is the column, and the order status was hard-coded. And then the line create is going to get the order number from the return order created as a variable from the order number that was created from the order header. So that's how we called the PO create business object. And then lastly, we created an editable column, and we use quantity recommended as the editable column. So simply by putting this as an editable field, we allowed you to enter any new quantity recommended number you wanted, and that is the field that we used to create the PO order. Okay, so that sums up the presentation. Again, what we talked about today was the real-time ERP philosophy based on the three concepts of the first touch point in the organization, creating relevant data to allow you to make better business decisions using business intelligence execution, and then using our adaptable framework to allow you to conform in our application to your specific business process needs. Thank you very much.